In 2022, powerful people vanished without a trace. Billionaires died under impossible circumstances. Teenagers disappeared into digital shadows. And military pilots chased objects in the sky that defied the laws of physics. These are not movie plots. These are real events, real people, real mysteries, stories so disturbing, so unexplained, that even governments refuse to give clear answers. Tonight, we will journey into 5 true mysteries that remain unsolved, cases that challenge logic, expose hidden dangers, and force us to question everything we think we know. Because once you hear these stories, you will never see the world the same way again. We'll explain everything in this video step by step. Don't skip it. History is often written in answers, but sometimes it is shaped by questions. Some mysteries refuse to rest. They linger in the silence, between facts, in the shadows behind headlines, in the uneasy spaces where certainty collapses. The year 2022, a time already heavy with global anxiety, war, and recovery, delivered not only change, but also unanswered stories that continue to haunt our collective memory. These were not just puzzles, they were human dramas, stories of vanished lives, unexplained deaths, hidden forces, and moments where truth seemed to slip through our fingers. Tonight, we journey through 5 of the most haunting unsolved mysteries of 2022, not merely to ask what happened, but to explore what these mysteries reveal about fear, hope, loss, and the fragile nature of certainty itself. 1. The sudden death of cryptocurrency pioneer Mircea Popescu. On a quiet morning in June 2021, Mircea Popescu, one of the earliest and wealthiest pioneers of cryptocurrency, disappeared beneath the waters of Costa Rica's Playa Hermosa Beach. But in 2022, his death resurfaced as one of the internet's darkest and most debated mysteries. Popescu was a brilliant and controversial mind, a man who distrusted governments, banks, and centralized authority. He built digital fortunes and radical ideas, becoming a legend in crypto circles. Official reports claim drowning, but those who knew the dangerous currents of Playa Hermosa questioned the narrative. Was it a tragic accident, or did deeper forces move silently beneath the waves? No full autopsy report was ever released. His massive digital fortune remains partly inaccessible, protected by encryption and secrecy. The private keys, the lifeline to his wealth, vanished with him. And so his story stands frozen between chance and conspiracy, reminding us that in the digital age, even death may not fully reveal its truth. 2. The mysterious death of Ivana Trump. In July 2022, the world was stunned by news of Ivana Trump's sudden death. Found at the bottom of a staircase in her New York townhouse, her passing instantly drew public attention. Not because of scandal, but because of the unanswered questions left behind. Authorities ruled it an accidental fall. Yet the circumstances felt incomplete. Ivana was 73, active, socially engaged, and planning future travels. There were no witnesses, no surveillance footage released, only silence and speculation. Was it a tragic accident, a sudden medical event, or something the public would never fully understand? Her death became a reflection of a larger truth, that even the lives lived under the brightest spotlight can vanish into uncertainty, leaving behind grief, doubt, and unanswered questions. 3. The death of Russian energy tycoon Ravil Maganov. In September 2022, Ravil Maganov, chairman of one of Russia's largest oil companies, died after falling from a hospital window in Moscow. The official explanation, suicide. But Maganov was not an ordinary businessman. He was one of the few Russian executives who had publicly criticized the war in Ukraine. His death joined a growing list of Russian elites who had died under eerily similar circumstances, falls from balconies, windows, and staircases. Too many to be coincidence, too few to prove conspiracy. In a nation where power and silence walk hand in hand, Maganov's fall became more than a tragedy. It became a symbol of fear, control, and the dangerous cost of dissent. The truth may remain sealed behind closed doors, guarded by fear stronger than any lock. For the vanishing of British teenager Alicia Navarro, though her disappearance began earlier, in 2019, the case of Alicia Navarro exploded back into global attention in 2022 as investigators chased new digital trails. Alicia, just 14 years old, walked out of her home one night, leaving behind a haunting note. "I ran away. I will be back. I swear. I'm sorry." She never returned. Years later, online evidence suggested grooming, manipulation, and the presence of shadowy figures hidden in encrypted networks. But no arrest, no confirmed sightings, no answers. Her family waits in suspended time, each sunrise a fragile hope, each sunset another reminder of absence. In her story, we confront the chilling reality of the modern world, where disappearance can happen not in dark alleys, but in bright bedrooms glowing with screens. 5. The Pentagon UFO report and the mystery of unidentified aerial phenomena. In 2022, the U.S. government released classified findings acknowledging hundreds of unexplained aerial encounters, objects defying known physics, accelerating without visible propulsion, and vanishing instantly. For decades, such reports were dismissed, ridiculed, but now official voices admitted, we do not know what these objects are. Are they foreign surveillance systems, unknown natural phenomena, secret technology, or something beyond our understanding? For the first time, humanity was forced to confront a humbling truth, that in the vastness of the universe, certainty is fragile and knowledge remains incomplete. And perhaps some mysteries are not meant to frighten us, but to remind us how small we truly are. Closing reflection. The unsolved mysteries of 2022 do not merely challenge logic. They challenge our trust, our assumptions, our sense of control. They whisper a quiet warning that history is not always a story of clarity, but often a struggle to understand chaos. Behind every unanswered question is a human story, a grieving family, a silent witness, a vanished truth, and perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not what happened, but why, in a world filled with cameras, satellites, and data, so much still remains unknown, because even in the age of information, the human story is never fully revealed. And maybe it never will be. Mircea Popescu lived at the intersection of brilliance and defiance. A man whose life unfolded in the hidden corridors of the digital revolution. He was not merely an investor or a programmer. He was a philosopher of code, a rebel against financial authority, a thinker who believed that freedom could be engineered into mathematics. To many, he was a legend. To others, a danger. And to history, he became a mystery. Born in Romania, Popescu displayed intellectual intensity from an early age. His mind moved faster than convention, questioning authority, rejecting limits, and pursuing absolute autonomy. When Bitcoin emerged in its fragile infancy, Popescu recognized not just a currency, but a revolution, a system capable of dismantling traditional power structures and replacing them with cryptographic trust. While others speculated, he committed. While others hesitated, he built. His investments grew into staggering wealth, and his influence shaped early crypto culture in ways that are still felt today. But Popescu was never comfortable with fame. He distrusted institutions, rejected government oversight, and openly challenged centralized financial systems. His online writings were sharp, confrontational, and uncompromising. He believed that true freedom could only exist outside state control, and his philosophy attracted both admiration and hostility. Over time, he became a polarizing figure, respected for his genius, criticized for his extremism, and feared for his influence. As his wealth expanded, so did his desire to remain unseen. He traveled often, living in remote locations, keeping his personal life fiercely private. In Costa Rica, he found a place that reflected his philosophy, untamed, unpredictable, and distant from global power. Sent. R.S. There, on the rugged Pacific coast, he settled into a life of isolation, seeking solitude among crashing waves and endless horizons. On June 23, 2021, Mircea Popescu walked toward the ocean at Playa Hermosa, a beach known for its violent currents and towering waves. The sea was restless that morning, its surface deceptive and calm, its depths treacherous beneath. Locals knew the danger well. Warning signs dotted the shore. Experienced swimmers approached with caution. But Popescu entered the water alone. What happened next remains uncertain. Witnesses later reported seeing him struggle against powerful rip currents. Some say he was pulled suddenly beneath the surface. Others recall frantic movements, arms raised, then nothing. By the time help arrived, he was gone. His body was recovered hours later. Authorities ruled it an accidental drowning, yet from the moment news of his death spread, doubt followed. Popescu was a strong swimmer, physically fit, and deeply familiar with the sea. He was cautious by nature, especially in matters involving personal safety. Why would he enter such dangerous waters alone? Why was there no detailed autopsy report released to the public? Why did official explanations feel incomplete as the crypto community absorbed the shock? Unsettling questions surfaced. Popescu controlled enormous digital assets, much of it protected by complex encryption systems. His private keys, the cryptographic signatures granting access to his wealth, were never recovered. Millions, perhaps billions, in cryptocurrency effectively vanished overnight. In the decentralized world of blockchain, lost keys mean lost fortunes forever. And so, with Popescu's death, an immense digital treasure disappeared into mathematical oblivion. Some believed his passing was a tragic accident, a cruel reminder of nature's indifference. Others suspected darker possibilities. In online forums, theories multiplied. Was he silenced? Did his ideological enemies see him as a threat? Could someone have engineered his death to gain access to his digital empire? Yet the very technology he championed made theft nearly impossible. Without his keys, his wealth could not be seized, not by criminals, not by governments, not even by those closest to him. In death, as in life, Popescu remained untouchable. His disappearance left behind more than financial mystery. It created a philosophical void. Popescu represented a radical idea that freedom could be absolute, that systems could replace trust, that authority could be dismantled through code. His life embodied rebellion against centralized power, and his death raised unsettling questions about the vulnerability of those who challenge global systems. In the weeks that followed, inconsistencies emerged. No full investigative report was released. Medical details remained limited. Local officials cited privacy laws. Speculation grew louder. Silence grew heavier. For many in the crypto world, Popescu's story became a cautionary tale about isolation, secrecy, and the dangers of living beyond institutional protection. For others, it became a symbol of resistance. A man who lived and died on his own terms, leaving behind a legacy no authority could fully control. But mystery clings where certainty is denied. Was the ocean simply unforgiving that day? Or did unseen forces shape the outcome? Did Popescu sense danger, or did he trust the water as he trusted his mathematics? Was he merely another victim of nature's power, or part of a narrative too complex to unravel? Even the sea offered no answers. Waves erased footprints, currents scattered evidence, time dissolved certainty. In death, Popescu achieved the ultimate expression of his philosophy, independence beyond reach. His wealth locked behind cryptographic walls, his story sealed in unanswered questions, his legacy drifting between brilliance and enigma. Years later, the silence remains. Every unrecovered coin, every missing report, every unanswered inquiry deepens the shadow around his final moments. In a world where data is endlessly tracked and every movement is recorded, his disappearance stands as a reminder that some truths still slip beyond surveillance. Perhaps that is the final irony of Mircea Popescu. A man who trusted mathematics more than institutions, whose life became defined by algorithms, and whose death dissolved into uncertainty, defying both logic and control. And so, somewhere along the shores of Costa Rica, the waves continue to crash, indifferent to human speculation, guarding secrets only the ocean knows. Ivana Trump lived much of her life in the public eye, yet she remained in many ways an enigma. Born in Czechoslovakia, she rose from modest beginnings to become an international figure of glamour, ambition, and resilience. She was a model, an athlete, a businesswoman, a mother, and for a defining chapter of her life, the wife of a man who would later become one of the most polarizing political figures in modern history. Her story was one of reinvention, of survival, of relentless forward motion. She crossed borders, learned languages, adapted to cultures, and carved a place for herself in the ruthless world of New York high society. She helped build luxury hotels, real estate empires, and global brands. She endured betrayal, public humiliation, and painful divorce, yet emerged with dignity, independence, and wealth. To admirers, she embodied strength. To critics, she represented excess. To her family, she was a fiercely protective mother whose life revolved around her children. By 2022, Ivana Trump had stepped away from the relentless glare of fame. Her life had settled into quieter rhythms. She spent time with friends, traveled frequently, maintained her health, and stayed socially active. At 73, she remained vibrant, stylish, and engaged, still planning trips, lunches, and events. There were no signs of illness, no warnings of frailty, no public indications of decline. Then, on a summer afternoon in July, the news arrived with stunning abruptness. Ivana Trump had been found dead in her Manhattan townhouse. Discovered at the bottom of a staircase, authorities quickly announced the cause as an accidental fall. There were no immediate signs of foul play, no forced entry, no public evidence of struggle. The medical examiner attributed her death to blunt force trauma consistent with a fall. Yet from the moment the announcement was made, questions followed. Her townhouse, a grand and meticulously maintained property, had long been her sanctuary. The staircase where she was found was familiar, well lit, and frequently used. Friends described her as careful, alert, and physically capable. She was not prone to dizziness. She did not require e-mobility assistance. She was not known to suffer from balance disorders. How could such a fatal fall happen so suddenly, so quietly, and without witnesses? No security footage was released. No detailed timeline of her final hours was publicly disclosed. Information remained limited, leaving a vacuum that speculation quickly filled. Some suggested a medical episode, a sudden stroke, heart arrhythmia, or fainting spell that caused her to collapse. Others pointed to the inherent dangers of staircases, particularly for older adults, where a moment's misstep can become catastrophic. But the absence of detailed explanation fueled uncertainty. Her family requested privacy, and investigators maintained discretion, citing respect and legal boundaries. Yet the public hunger for clarity remained unsatisfied. Ivana's life had unfolded in headlines, tabloids, courtrooms, and glossy magazines. She had lived transparently, often uncomfortably so. And now, in death, she became surrounded by silence. Her townhouse stood quietly behind closed doors, its elegant interior untouched, its secrets sealed. For many, the mystery lay not in suspicion, but in incompleteness. The narrative felt unfinished. There were no final public appearances hinting at vulnerability, no reported distress, no known health struggles. Her social calendar remained full. Her communication with friends was active. Nothing suggested a farewell approaching. She had recently returned from travel. She was planning upcoming engagements. She had spoken with family members who detected no alarm. And yet, within those walls, something happened that ended her life instantly. The staircase became a symbol, not of grandeur, but of fragility. A reminder of how swiftly the boundary between life and death can dissolve. In the days following her passing, tributes poured in. Friends remembered her laughter, her discipline, her unwavering loyalty to her children. Her former husband offered public condolences. Her children mourned privately, shielding themselves from speculation. But beneath the condolences, the uncertainty persisted. Why was no emergency call recorded? Who discovered her body and how long had she lain there? What were the precise medical findings? Were there any signs of a preceding health crisis? These questions, unanswered, turned grief into inquiry. Ivana Trump had navigated the storms of wealth, betrayal, fame, and reinvention. She had survived political scrutiny, social judgment, and relentless public pressure. That such a formidable life could end in silence and solitude at the bottom of a staircase seemed almost unbearable in its simplicity. Her death stood in contrast to her existence, quiet where her life had been loud, still where her life had been restless, unseen where her life had been endlessly observed. In New York, buildings tower skyward, symbols of ambition and human will. Staircases connect levels, guiding movement, progress, ascent. Yet they also carry risk, a reminder that gravity never forgets. The townhouse, once alive with gatherings and conversation, fell into stillness. Personal belongings remained untouched. Rooms echoed with absence. The city moved forward indifferent. While questions lingered, some saw in her passing a reminder of mortality, that no amount of wealth, fame, or influence grants immunity from sudden fate. Others felt an unease they could not fully articulate, a sense that essential details remained hidden, that the story was incomplete. The official conclusion settled the matter for authorities, but not for public imagination. History is filled with famous deaths that leave behind doubt. Not because of evidence of wrongdoing, but because of unresolved curiosity. When lives live so visibly end so quietly, the silence itself becomes suspect. Ivana Trump's story was one of transformation, from small-town girl to global figure, from immigrant to elite, from public scandal to personal reinvention. She mastered change. She adapted. She endured. Yet in her final moments, she stood alone, unseen, unheard, her last steps unknown. In that solitary descent, an entire lifetime converged. Ambition, resilience, sorrow, triumph, all collapsing into a single moment that no one witnessed, no camera recorded, no voice narrated. What remains is not certainty, but absence. An unanswered pause at the end of a life that had rarely known stillness. In the grand chronicle of public figures, some deaths fade gently into memory. Others linger, unresolved, suspended between fact and speculation. Ivana Trump's passing belongs to the latter, a quiet question mark written in the margins of a life that once dominated headlines. Within the walls of that Manhattan townhouse, time stopped, leaving behind only echoes, unanswered inquiries, and the haunting reality that even the most visible lives can vanish into mystery. Ravil Maganov was a man shaped by the immense forces of Russian history, industry, and power. Born in the shadow of the Soviet system, he rose through discipline, intellect, and relent. Less ambition to become one of the most influential figures in Russia's energy sector. His life mirrored the transformation of a nation, from communist rigidity to capitalist complexity, from isolation to global entanglement. And in that journey, Maganov became not just a businessman, but a quiet architect of modern Russia's economic machinery. For decades, he operated within a world of strict hierarchy, coded language, and unspoken rules. The Russian energy industry was never merely about oil and gas. It was about power, influence, loyalty, and survival. To thrive in such an environment required more than intelligence. It demanded caution, restraint, and a deep understanding of political gravity. Maganov mastered these skills, navigating boardrooms and state corridors with calculated precision. By the time he became chairman of Lukoil, one of Russia's largest private oil companies, he stood among the nation's elite. His decisions shaped markets, employment, and international energy flows. His voice carried weight. Yet, unlike many of his peers, he was known for measured independence. He was not flamboyant. He avoided public theatrics. His authority came from competence rather than spectacle. Then came the war in Ukraine. In early 2022, as Russian forces crossed borders and global condemnation intensified, silence spread through Russia's business class. Fear settled heavily. Statements were carefully avoided. Loyalty was expected. Obedience became survival. But in a rare moment of moral divergence, Maganov's company released a statement expressing concern over the conflict, calling for its swift resolution and emphasizing the value of human life. It was a brief mess. Age, measured, diplomatic. Yet in the political climate of Russia, it was radical. Within days, the statement vanished from official platforms, but its echo remained. From that moment, Maganov became vulnerable. History had shown that dissent in Russia, especially among elites, rarely went unpunished. Power maintained itself through warning, not always through direct action, but through fear, example, and disappearance. The line between accident and message was often deliberately blurred. On September 1st, 2022, Maganov was hospitalized in Moscow. Officially, he was undergoing treatment for illness. He occupied a room at the Central Clinical Hospital, an institution reserved for high-ranking officials, businessmen, and political figures. It was a place of guarded corridors, restricted access, and careful observation. And then, suddenly, he was dead. Reports stated that Maganov fell from a sixth-floor window. Authorities quickly labeled the incident a suicide. There were no public investigative findings, no surveillance footage, no witness accounts released, only a brief announcement, formal condolences, and the swift closing of inquiry. But the pattern was already familiar. In the months leading up to Maganov's death, a disturbing series of similar incidents had unfolded. Russian executives, oligarchs, and officials had died after falling from windows, balconies, and staircases. Some deaths were labeled suicides, others were described as accidents. All were marked by the same chilling consistency: high-profile individuals, sensitive positions, sudden falls, and immediate closure. Each death deepened public unease. Each explanation felt increasingly fragile. Maganov's case struck especially hard. Unlike others, he had subtly stepped outside the boundary of enforced silence. His company's anti-war message had placed him in quiet opposition, a position fraught with danger. Those who knew him struggled to reconcile the official narrative with his character. Maganov was cautious, reserved, strategically disciplined. He understood power dynamics intimately. Suicide, many felt, contradicted his temperament. There were no public signs of despair, no farewell messages, no known psychological distress. In Russia, where information flows are tightly controlled, absence of evidence becomes evidence of absence. Silence speaks louder than confession. The hospital room where he stayed remained inaccessible. Details surrounding his final hours were sealed. Medical reports were restricted. The public was left only with fragments, speculation, and dread. The message was implicit. Power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it lets gravity speak. In such systems, windows become thresholds between loyalty and consequence, between obedience and defiance. A fall does not merely signify death, it signals warning. Maganov's passing resonated far beyond corporate circles. It reverberated through diplomatic halls, financial institutions, and intelligence agencies. Analysts spoke cautiously. Journalists chose words carefully. Citizens absorbed the event with quiet understanding. Fear does not require explanation. It requires only repetition. And repetition had become undeniable. Each new fall layered upon the last, constructing a narrative too coherent to ignore, yet too dangerous to confront. Within Russia's elite, silence deepened. Public statements ceased. Expressions of dissent evaporated. The cost of deviation had become visible. Maganov's life, once dedicated to industry and strategy, had ended as a political symbol. His death transcended individual tragedy. It entered the realm of collective warning. In this world, certainty is dangerous. Questions are liabilities. Survival depends on obedience, and obedience demands silence. The official explanation satisfied legal procedure. It did not satisfy human logic. How does a man under medical supervision access an open window? Why were no preventative measures in place? Why were no internal investigations made public? Why did the case close so swiftly? Each question pointed toward uncomfortable conclusions. But in authoritarian systems, truth is rarely allowed to surface. It is submerged beneath layers of bureaucracy, intimidation, and fear. Documents vanish, witnesses remain silent, memory fades by force, and yet history remembers. Maganov's name joined a growing list, each representing not just a life lost, but a boundary enforced. In the long arc of Russian history, power has often spoken through disappearance. From czars to commissars, from party leaders to modern autocrats, dissent has frequently ended in silence. The methods change. The message remains. In Maganov's fall, that message echoed clearly. The window became a symbol, not of escape, but of finality, a reminder that vertical space can erase horizontal resistance. For those watching from afar, the event stirred unease. For those living within the system, it reinforced reality. Power, once threatened, does not argue, it demonstrates. Maganov had navigated decades of political complexity, survived economic upheaval, and mastered industrial transformation. Yet in the end, a single moment ended a lifetime of calculation. His death remains unresolved, not because evidence is lacking, but because truth is inaccessible. In that inaccessibility lies the true mystery, not the mechanics of the fall, but the machinery of silence that surrounds it. Alicia Navarro was an ordinary teenager living an ordinary life in an extraordinary time. Born into a world shaped by screens, networks, and digital connections, she grew up in an era where friendships could exist across continents, where trust could be formed through text, and where danger could arrive silently through a glowing screen. Her childhood unfolded in Tucson, Arizona, surrounded by family, school routines, and everyday hopes. To those who knew her, she was shy, thoughtful, creative, and deeply sensitive, a young girl searching for belonging in a world that often felt overwhelming. Like many teenagers, Alicia struggled with loneliness. She found comfort in online communities where conversations felt easier, identities could be shaped, and acceptance seemed more accessible. The digital world offered her a sense of escape, a place where she could explore ideas, friendships, and emotions without the pressures of physical presence. But the same space that offered comfort also concealed danger. In the quiet hours of September 2019, Alicia did something that would alter the course of countless lives. She left her home while her family slept. She took only a few belongings. On her bedroom desk, she left behind a note, written in careful words that carried both reassurance and brow. I ran away. I will be back. I swear, I'm sorry. She vanished into the darkness. By morning, panic filled the house. Doors were open. Her bed was untouched. Her phone, laptop, and most personal belongings remained behind. There was no sign of struggle, no explanation, only absence. Search efforts began immediately. Police scoured neighborhoods. Volunteers combed parks and streets. Her face flooded television screens and social media feeds. The community rallied, desperate to find the missing girl. But days passed, then weeks, and the trail grew cold. Investigators soon uncovered troubling digital evidence. Alicia had been communicating online with unknown individuals through gaming platforms and chat services. Conversations hinted at emotional manipulation, secrecy, and grooming. She had been encouraged to detach from her family, to see herself as misunderstood, isolated, and trapped. Slowly, methodically, trust had been built. The internet, once seen as her refuge, now appeared as the doorway through which she disappeared. For years, her family lived in suspended time. Every ringing phone carried hope. Every unknown number could be her. Birthdays passed. Holidays arrived without her laughter. Her room remained unchanged, frozen in the moment she left. Her mother slept beside the note she had written, clinging to the promise that she would return. Then, in 2022, new digital clues reignited global attention. Investigators discovered online accounts linked to Alicia that had remained active long after her disappearance. Conversations continued, profiles were updated, digital footprints suggested that she was alive somewhere, communicating under assumed identities. The implication was both hopeful and horrifying. Hopeful because she might still be alive, horrifying because someone may have been controlling her access to the world. Online communities erupted with speculation. Who was guiding her movements? Was she being held against her will, or had she been convinced to stay hidden? Was she trapped in psychological captivity, bound by fear, loyalty, or emotional dependence? The nature of online grooming is insidious. It rarely begins with threat. It begins with kindness, with understanding, with sympathy. Slowly, trust replaces skepticism. Isolation is reframed as independence. Disobedience becomes empowerment. And before the victim realizes, their world has shrunk to a single voice, a single influence. Alicia's story reflected a chilling reality of the digital age, that predators no longer require physical proximity. They enter through conversation, through empathy, through the vulnerabilities of adolescence. Her disappearance raised urgent questions. How many young people were being quietly manipulated behind closed screens? How many families were unaware of the silent conversations shaping their children's decisions? Despite renewed attention, Alicia remained missing. Leads emerged and vanished. Online traces hinted at movement across borders. Some suggested she may have traveled far from home, possibly even leaving the country. Others believed she was being concealed within anonymous digital communities designed to evade detection. Law enforcement faced immense challenges. Encrypted messaging services, virtual private networks, and false identities created layers of invisibility. Each digital clue led to another locked door. For her family, hope became both lifeline and torment. Her mother spoke publicly, pleading for Alicia to come home, reminding her that she was loved, that no mistake could erase her place in the family. Her voice trembled with grief, yet carried unwavering faith. But silence answered. As years passed, Alicia transformed from a missing child into a haunting symbol of modern vulnerability. Her story echoed across households, warning parents of unseen dangers and reminding teenagers of how easily trust can be exploited. In the glow of smartphones, a generation navigates identity, belonging, and connection. And within that space, predators adapt, evolve, and hide. Alicia's disappearance revealed the invisible battlefield where innocence meets manipulation. Investigators traced her online interactions to older individuals, some using multiple identities. Conversations suggested emotional dependency, fear of discovery, and pressure to remain hidden. The psychological chains binding her were more powerful than physical restraints. Unlike kidnappings of the past, there were no screams, no forced entry, no visible struggle, just a door opening quietly into the night. Her note carried heartbreak in its simplicity, a promise, an apology, a belief that she would return. That belief sustained her family through endless nights of waiting. Public interest surged again in 2022, fueled by renewed investigations and viral awareness campaigns. Billboards displayed her face. Social media revived her story. Tips poured in from around the world, yet none led to confirmed recovery. Some reported sightings, others claimed encounters, but no verified evidence emerged. Time transformed Alicia from a 14-year-old girl to a young woman somewhere in the world, living under unknown circumstances, possibly unaware of the vast efforts made to find her, or possibly too afraid to surface. Her story forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about technology, parenting, and the fragile boundaries between freedom and danger. It revealed how isolation, anxiety, and emotional need could become tools of control. In the quiet corners of the internet, entire communities exist beyond public view, hidden behind usernames and encrypted platforms where vulnerable individuals are drawn into webs of manipulation that blur reality and loyalty. Alicia's absence became a permanent presence. Each year that passed deepened the ache, yet hope refused to fade. Her mother continued to believe. Her family continued to wait. Somewhere, a young woman carried the memory of a bedroom left behind, a home frozen in time, and a promise written in trembling ink. Somewhere, unanswered questions lingered, suspended in digital silence. Who persuaded her to leave? Who continues to influence her choices? Does she still believe she will return? And does she know that an entire world is still searching for her? For generations, humanity looked into the night sky and wondered whether it was alone. Ancient civilizations carved stories into stone about gods descending from the heavens. Sailors navigated by unfamiliar stars, whispering myths of celestial visitors. Scientists searched for patterns, signals, proof. And yet, for most of modern history, the possibility of unknown objects in our skies was dismissed, mocked, or buried beneath layers of secrecy. Then, in 2022, official voices finally admitted what many had long suspected: there were things moving through Earth's atmosphere that could not be explained. The Pentagon released a report confirming hundreds of encounters between military pilots and unidentified aerial phenomena, objects that defied known laws of physics, technology, and aerodynamics. These were not blurry photographs or shaky eyewitness accounts. These were radar recordings, infrared imagery, cockpit videos, and trained observers describing machines that accelerated instantly, changed direction without slowing, hovered silently, and vanished in seconds. For the first time, uncertainty became official policy. The report did not claim alien origin. It did not declare foreign espionage. It did not offer definitive explanations. Instead, it acknowledged something deeply unsettling. The most powerful military in the world could not identify what it was seeing. In an age defined by satellites, sensors, artificial intelligence, and constant surveillance, the idea that unknown objects could move freely through restricted airspace shook long-held assumptions of control. Fighter pilots described encounters that left them stunned. Objects tracked on radar would suddenly appear beside their aircraft, match their speed, then surge forward at impossible acceleration. Some hovered above the ocean, descending beneath the surface before re-emerging without disturbance. Others rotated without visible propulsion, defying aerodynamic design. These were not isolated incidents. Encounters spanned decades, continents, and military branches. Yet for years, pilots were discouraged from reporting them. Fear of ridicule, damage to careers, and classified protocols kept countless encounters buried. Only in recent years did institutional pressure ease, allowing data to surface. When it did, the implications rippled across scientific, political, and cultural landscapes. If these objects were human-made, they represented technology far beyond current capability. No nation publicly possessed propulsion systems capable of such performance. No known aircraft could withstand the forces involved. No drone systems matched the observed behavior. If they were natural phenomena, they defied existing atmospheric models and physical explanations. And if they were something else entirely, the implications challenged humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The Pentagon's cautious language reflected a deeper uncertainty. The report classified the encounters into categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric events, classified technology, foreign surveillance platforms, and a final unsettling category: unresolved. It was this last group that captured global imagination. Unresolved meant unknown. Unknown meant unexplained. Unexplained meant mystery. In congressional hearings, intelligence officials testified under oath. They spoke carefully, measured in tone, restrained in detail. But their message was unmistakable. Something was happening in Earth's skies, and they did not know what it was. Public reaction unfolded in waves. Skeptics dismissed the findings, attributing them to sensor glitches, misidentified aircraft, or human error. Scientists urged caution, emphasizing the need for rigorous investigation. Enthusiasts pointed to the revelations as validation of decades of suppressed evidence. Meanwhile, silence surrounded the most sensitive details. Data was classified. Videos were edited. Technical specifications remained undisclosed. The boundaries of transparency collided with national security. Yet the core admission could not be undone. We do not know. For centuries, humanity believed itself the observer. Now it seemed possible that humanity itself was being observed. The possibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. If advanced non-human intelligence existed, what were its intentions? Observation, research, exploration, or something beyond human comprehension? If foreign powers possessed revolutionary technology, how had they developed it in secrecy? And why deploy it in such ambiguous ways? And if these phenomena were natural, what unknown forces governed Earth's atmosphere? Each possibility unsettled existing frameworks of understanding. Military analysts confronted vulnerabilities. Airspace dominance, long considered absolute, appeared suddenly uncertain. Defense strategies relied on prediction, detection, and interception. But how could one defend against something that defied known physics? Scientists confronted humility. The laws that governed motion, energy, and matter had long provided reliable models. Now, observations suggested gaps, anomalies, possibilities yet uncharted. Philosophers confronted existential questions. If humanity was not alone, how did that reshape meaning, purpose, and belief? Religious scholars revisited ancient texts, interpreting them through new lenses. Historians reconsidered myths and legends once dismissed as fantasy. Across the world, eyes turned skyward. In remote deserts, sailors at sea, pilots at altitude, and observers in quiet fields, people wondered if what they saw might carry new significance. The mystery extended beyond sightings. It revealed a deeper human fear, the fear of not being in control. For centuries, humanity advanced by mastering uncertainty. Fire, agriculture, navigation, electricity, medicine, computing. Each conquest expanded control. But these objects represented something beyond mastery, beyond prediction, beyond containment. They suggested that despite all progress, there remained realms untouched by human authority. Governments responded with caution. New investigative offices were created. Funding increased. Reporting mechanisms expanded. Military pilots were encouraged to document encounters without stigma. Still, secrecy endured. Some data remained classified under national security laws. Some incidents were too sensitive to disclose. Some conclusions remained too speculative to announce. The gap between what was known and what was shared widened. And in that gap, speculation flourished. Online communities dissected footage frame by frame. Physicists debated propulsion theories. Engineers proposed experimental models. Skeptics demanded empirical rigor. Believers cited historical accounts. Journalists pursued leaked documents. Yet definitive answers remained elusive. What moved through the skies in 2022 defied conventional classification. It operated in domains beyond established understanding. It appeared and disappeared without explanation. The mystery lay not merely in the objects, but in their indifference to human systems. They did not communicate. They did not engage. They did not reveal purpose. They simply existed, momentarily crossing paths with humanity, leaving behind uncertainty. For some, this silence was comforting, a reminder that humanity still had mysteries to explore. For others, it was unsettling, a suggestion that unknown forces might observe from beyond perception. In the vastness of space, Earth is a fragile sphere suspended in darkness. Every technological advance deepens awareness of how little is truly known. The events of 2022 reinforced that awareness. They reminded humanity that the universe does not owe explanation. That observation does not guarantee understanding. That certainty remains provisional. And so the skies remain open, vast, and silent, carrying secrets beyond human reach, inviting curiosity while withholding clarity, challenging knowledge while resisting discovery, leaving behind questions that echo endlessly across science, philosophy, and imagination. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.